the source of the aliveness that's going to get us there is always right here. And that's always only going to come one movement at a time, one emotion at a time, one brushstroke at a time.
Greetings and welcome to the Compromise to Alchemize podcast with me, your host, Dr. Neel Bulchandani. I have the pleasure of interviewing healers, artists, musicians, thought leaders, philosophers, pontificators, and all kinds of people who journey in their own way, but also facilitating for others this path of integration or healing or just processing life. Compromise to Alchemized is about this non-linear journey and the theme of personal legend, where I ask people this poignant question that Paulo Coelho provokes in his book, The Alchemist, and that is, what is your personal legend? Today's episode is with Michael Gungor. Now, he's kind of everything that I just mentioned in the title. He is just so many. He's multifaceted. He just has a whole gamut of what his kind of, how we call it, his life trajectory has been like. So this music that you're hearing in the intro is his song. The song is called Smokeless Fire. He has a podcast called Loving This, in which he covers the songs from the album that the Smokeless Fire is in. And I was loving that. I just listened to each episode because he shares what was behind, kind of the story of the song and lyrics and musical choices, composition choices. I just loved the podcast. So we could spend this whole time talking about that, but loving this, go check out his podcast. We go into a lot of places in this conversation. So I encourage you to just kind of keep in mind here that one of the main themes was being present. And if you know Michael's work, he's often just sharing such robust contemplations and thoughts on what it means to be present and so much more. I also have a theme that I've kind of sneakily introduced to the podcast, which is consciousness. Maybe it's not so sneaky, but last episode with Jesse Coomer, we went at consciousness from breathwork. With Michael, we go in it from all angles. So just enjoy. Just know that I was fully feeling the joy and the wonder of our conversation, and you'll hear it. So let me just tell you a little bit more about Michael, and then you can dive into the episode. So Michael Gungor is a creative mystic known for his music. Gungor is the co-founder and primary songwriter of the eclectic indie band Gungor. So yeah, it's like a blend of folk, rock, electronic, world music, and some of you who don't know who he is, you could find out all this info, but he has also co-hosted and co-founded the Liturgists podcast. Just a wide gamut and spectrum of topics about faith, science, art, nature of the divine. Yeah, and like I said, I love loving this podcast. It both fulfills that deep desire I have to delve into thought exploration, but also music and so much more. So you could look at his bio on his website. We'll have all those links. He has earned multiple Grammy nominations for his music. It's you when you hear the music, you'll get it. It's really, really phenomenal. Um, and we've had the great pleasure of well, we met in Redding, California. My wife Ton and I went to a house kind of gathering, and he was there. It was so cool. So, you're going to hear topics about um, music, of course, thoughts. You're going to hear conversations about spiral patterns. You'll hear us discuss the um, divine feminine and masculine, or the polarities. You'll hear us talk about um, just a even I go into spoken word that wasn't planned. So yeah, without further ado, you enjoy this episode, and I can't wait to hear what you think. If you want to hear the full song, which I know you all do, Smokeless Fire, it's just so good if you listen to the whole thing. Like, really dive in, listen to the lyrics, but just let the music take you, because it's transporting, as you have already noticed. Just go to the timestamp, and it's at the end of the episode. I hope you all listen to the full episode. For those of you who want to just skip to it, please do. You might even want to go to it and then go ahead and listen to our conversation. However you want to do it, encourage you to listen, and can't wait to hear how the song hits you.
Temperature's warming. We could try being brave. Let the sky spill with rain. Let the light paint the day. Feel the desire, the pure smokeless fire. Let everything have its way. Let everything have its way. Let everything have its way.
Not the Neel deal, no, but in that, it's I don't know. I was listening to an episode that I did recently, and for some reason told somebody what the meaning of my name was. Well, actually, because I know you're into um, learning about the ancient ways of India. I know that from a little bit about what you and me
Mhm.
talked about, but I also know that from hearing you on some really cool podcasts. And so my name, I'm Indian in origin. My parents were born there. I was born in America, but the name Neil, Neel, because you asked about the spelling. So
Mhm.
Neil, Neil, means like Victor. Cornelius is the full name,
Mm.
so it means like champion. That's Neal, Neil. Well, Neil, Neel means uh, the color of like this when it's a blue sky outside. That's a color. So if you want to say what color the sky is, it's Neil. That's that
Really?
color. Yeah, if it's from India, but it has dual meaning.
Oh,
Now that,
cool.
like, it's actually, in
Wait,
India
that's the
they call.
Sanskrit? That's the
Yes,
Sanskrit word for blue or whatever? Okay, cool.
yes, yes. And
I
Sanskrit
love
is,
that color.
yeah. Now Sanskrit is the writing. Like when you write in Sanskrit,
Yeah, yeah.
but when you speak it, it would be like Hindi, or the
Yeah,
language
yeah.
is different. Anyways,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Mhm.
But but the other thing you like this, the other thing it means, it's a number in an ancient Indian numbering system, and it means 10
Hmm.
billion. So it's like
10
pretty
billion.
interesting. Yes.
Interesting.
So if you're ever walking around and you're like, I'm so happy I made that $10 billion the other day, you could say, I'm so happy I made Neil dollars. And I'd appreciate it. No, I'm just kidding. So, um, well, we've jumped into it. I hit the record as soon as I started talking. So I'm happy for this time with you, because I've been enjoying. I mean, I just have enjoyed your man. Well, like, it is hard to start with you because you are hard to define, but that's great. But you're just like a philosopher, and like, I love your music, and I've loved a lot of your music over time. Um, and man, I think, like, as I was listening to your podcast, loving this, right? That's the right
Yeah.
that's the right words. Love this or loving this, loving this.
Loving
I've
this.
listened
Yeah.
love yeah, I've listened to so many episodes and, probably
Oh,
like 3 of them I listened to 2 or 3 times. And then that was even before we finally, we got this connected to do the podcast. Because then in the last, like, 2 days, I was listening to at least the songs from, like, a few of them. But, one of my favorite things, not really specifically about any of the songs, is that I really love how you unpacked, what was musically happening for you and then what in life was happening for you that led to not only like the song and the lyrics but like why you decided to make like some what I would say were pretty dramatic changes in the architecture of the song and the
yeah.
composition of the songs. And I feel like that's a journey. The only person I felt like has done that you reminded me of was Ryan from Sleeping at Last when
Love
um,
Ryan.
we used to like my wife and I used to listen to that podcast or just when it came out, we were listening to that, and it was like so cool how he would take you deep because I think he's an Enneagram 5, and you are
I think
you
he's
are.
a 9. I'm a
Oh, is he?
5. I think he's a 9. Yeah.
Okay,
He says he's a 9.
okay.
I know
He
that. I
says
know
it.
that because he wrote that his 9 Enneagram song. I've heard him talk about he wrote
Oh
that.
my
It's
gosh, I can't believe I forgot
beautiful.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, interestingly, like I feel like you two remind me of each other with, like, the depth of, um, insight you have into your own world of what you makes you think about what song choice and so it was pretty cool to just to take in, like, your thought process, and I feel like
Mm.
I learned from that, and I'm still learning from that, so
Mm.
but,
Thank you. That's
yeah, you're
high.
welcome, man.
I love Ryan. So being in the same example with him is an honor.
Mm.
And what you said is very nice. Thank you. But yes, I like going into the recesses of the game and the pleasure of creating something with like layers and subtleties and nuance. It's fun. It's like it's play for me.
Yeah, that's and then I'm just hopped to the Enneagram part. Wasn't thinking about it until you we said it, but yeah, so I'm kind of like Enneagram. I mean, I resonate with Enneagram 5, 4, but I'm pretty like
Hmm.
50-50 with those just because of
Hmm.
I mean, I would imagine you could be, but I never want to peg somebody, but
Yeah, I'm 5'4" as well.
so I know that's been some like I've okay, so with my world of holistic healing and manual therapy and all that, there was a stretch of time that I traveled to many countries to teach an intuitive movement practice that came to me through
Mm.
downloads. And it's how I found I unlocked a whole huge part of my being with
Hmm.
integration and from dissociation and chaos to more
Mm.
integration. And so it's kind of like it was an intuitive flow that was mixed with sound expression, mixed with mapping and journaling, mixed with spoken word poetry, mixed with stretching and fascia release, and then going into
Mm.
places of conscious breathing to go into that unconscious territory to find stuff happen. So I'm using words to like
Hmm.
architect some to describe the architecture of something that words can describe somewhat well. But there was so many moments through those teachings, those journeys that um you know I mean, both sound was a huge part of what unlocked me early in life, and then even more movement, and then um the kind of what I was going to say something and then I totally lost my train of thought. But for me, like the Enneagram was also helpful. How to integrate, how to become more myself. It was a helpful tool to have language to describe what for me was like growing up in chaos, and then I lived in my head. I well,
Mm.
actually, you know what the way I used the Enneagram was so I actually, Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, and then I did, but in Reading, up in Reading, where I was a year ago before I moved here, I taught at Sun Oaks Fitness Club, right? It's just a gym. I taught a class in there 6 weeks long on this intuitive movement practice, which was very mystical, but people would come in and they would come in and they would have no idea that they
Mhm.
would be led on this journey of unlocking themselves through all this stuff. But I would use the Enneagram as a way to ground it out to help people go into their
Mm.
integration points and then help recognize when they were in some of those disintegration points, if they
Mm.
were in a state of chaos or disintegration. So I help people somatically move in and out. But like this really well, so I'm going to ask you a question before But my goal wasn't ever to say to people like, you're a five, you need to stay a five, you need to make your wing four, whatever. It was more like, you know, the numbers are there to describe our sufferings or our structures. And ideally, we would all integrate to become all the numbers, to become whole. So I'd love to hear. I mean, because some people are going to be like, what are you guys talking about? Maybe they missed out on this huge part of history where the Enneagram was like what everybody was talking about. Can you describe how that's, I don't know, anything the Enneagram means to you, or at least like what is a five and,
Yeah.
some of that?
Well, that's first of all fascinating that you were incorporating movement with Enneagram. That sounds very interesting. I'd love to know how that happened or how
Yeah.
you use that. But because yeah, for me, the Enneagram has been a really powerful technology. I
Mhm.
think the way I see it, I know some people kind of use it like a typing tool, like a personality typing tool, and I think it's more than that.
Yeah.
Um, but the way I see what even personality is probably different than a lot of people might see it
Mhm.
because I don't think that what we call personality or these shapes are actually who anyone is.
Mhm.
I think they're shapes of um, looking at the world, like patterns of. I kind of think a lot of times of like an eddy in a river, like a little
Mhm.
swirl of water. There's a consistent movement that these little eddies have, that there's a pattern to them, but
Mhm.
it's not other than the river, and it's not actually just the eddy. It's not isolated. It's not actually exiled from anything. But if you were living in that little swirl and identified just in that little swirl, you might feel terrified. Like you're like, I'm gonna die in this
Mhm.
rushing river, and everything around me is threatening. And and so I think actually what we're identifying when we're identifying the Enneagram numbers are little swirls. And I think the Enneagram numbers probably is like the primary swirl of your
Yeah.
personality, psyche. But what those are by nature are patterns of how we go about life, how we tend to look at life, what strategies have been adopted in the system that tend to keep us safe, tend to get us getting love, to help us feel like we have agency or control in our lives. And they're basically little swirls of identity. And so to me, learning the specific patterns of the five, which was my primary way of being a me, is a primary way of feeling like I was separate, and what I eventually found out, special. And uh, I did that through accumulating knowledge and
Mhm.
accumulating skill and you know hoarding that to try, because that's what I thought would make me lovable. And if I was lovable, then I could be safe. But safe as what? Safe as
Mhm.
this guy, safe as who I think that I am. And so as that began to be seen, some of the strategies kind of loosen their grip a little bit, because the more that you're in the grip of that eddy, like you really are just, I'm this guy and this
Mhm.
personality, I see things exactly like this, the more constrictive that feels in your whole system. And so
Yeah.
like you, it sounds like, I think fives do tend to like really live in our heads. um and so body practices are one of the
Yeah.
things for me as well that were like,
Oh, yeah.
whoa, that it allowed me to see like that my whole life isn't actually just this one little circle of accumulating knowledge, but that's just one strategy in this living system. And the body is this often ignored huge part of that system in the five. So
Yeah.
moving into the body and learning dance and intuitive movement, and like it helped loosen the constriction of the five in a way that is really just about, it's freedom. It's like, oh, I don't have to just approach life in this one way and see life in this really constricted lens all the time. There's actually other ways of being where that 5 thing still exists, like when it's redeemed, if you will, when it's freed. It's not that I still love now. I can play with knowledge and you know getting good at something, being skilled at something, but it's not anymore from the place of lack that it used to be. And that's kind of to me that what the Enneagram can illustrate is like where you kind of operate from lack, where it tends to move deeper into lack and from stress. When you start to kind of like get a bigger picture, what does it start looking like? You can kind of start integrating into other numbers. Um, but it's kind of about to me the Enneagram describes more wounds than it does
Yeah.
uh, who I am, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 100%. And I love I listened to what you said. I then couldn't help but go back to the eddy and the swirl, and I just went into a vortex with that. And oh my gosh. Oh, because my mom made me, and I say made me, but I'm so thankful. But when I was in school age or whatever that was in childhood, she made me copy out Roget's Family Thesaurus. No, it was whatever it was, Family Word Finder. That was the Reader's Digest version of a thesaurus. I had to copy out 20 words and their synonyms every day before I did my homework, and that meant that I could do my homework. So I think of all these synonyms. So eddy, I thought of swirl, vortex, of
Hmm.
course, cyclone, tornado. I thought of
Yeah.
Fibonacci spiral, and
Yeah.
then of course I have, even I was preparing my slides for a presentation that I'm doing next week in North Carolina, and I have this plant that has a spiral pattern. Because I
Mm,
talk about
cool.
tongue tie creating torsional debt for the body, and how it take and I have another picture on there that's a
Interesting.
spring, and it's a spring that is compressed. And when a compressed spring is compressed, it no longer is a spring. It then has axial load. If you walk around like a spring that has no that has compression, gravity jams you down and wins. But gravity, is a weak, constant force that should be our friend. So if we decompress that spiral pattern, so it's a buoyant
Mm,
spring, then we can walk around with that fluidity. But I think about this energetically a lot.
mm,
And when I'm
mhm.
working with people, we go into those realms, and I know you know that really well. So I think of like a swirl and vortex as like when you're in the eye of it or whatever, it could feel like a tornado. You could feel still, but when you're just enough to the periphery, you would be taken, swept away.
Mm, mhm.
And I feel like that's fight, flight, that nervous system. So, but if we're in like centered, still, if we're within ourselves and centered and found, we find our
Mhm.
nexus and our
Mhm.
true north, then we can like look at the swirling mess around us and
Yeah, I love
we
that.
can stay still. So I feel like those are the words just the like that extemporaneously came when you were sharing, because I loved your description of like these archetypal personality systems are great. They're tools, they're technology, they're scaffolding, but they're not us. And in fact, like we can use those things to describe things, but I feel like kind of like I was saying too, like integrating, if we're integrated and we're like one, like Neo on the Matrix when he breathes out and then the whole world, then he breathes in, or he comes in and the world goes inside of him. It's that image that I think is on the first
Wow.
one. Maybe that's the
Yeah.
one with Jet Li. That's the one of my favorite movies of all time. But I mean, man, I'm gonna stop talking in a second. But it's like I just got caught up in that vortex of your words, and I'm like, wow, how many times have I been swirling around? But then I find that peace, that shalom, that centrality of who I am, and I'm like, I get to pick and choose from all these ways on what's best for me and the person I'm with, or the structure I'm with, the organization I'm with, because these are all assets that can help us navigate, but they're not who we are. We are way more than that, right?
Yeah. I love that. I love that image of going deeper into the center because I think the intuitive thing that almost all of us do is you start feeling the storm and you go, "Oh no, I got to get out of here."
Right.
And so you try to walk away from it, from the center, and it ends up just getting stronger and stronger. Um, and we're trying to escape. So we have, you know, sadness comes up. And we're like, oh, I don't want to feel sad, so we try to distract ourselves. We try to walk away from it. It doesn't actually get rid of the sadness. It just pushes it down into the system in a way
Mm,
that
mhm,
uh, actually, uh, even as we talked about in the body, the way I see, I think a lot of what happens in these swirls, some of them start emotionally or like with thoughts or just little things, but we push them down. And it actually strengthens them in a strange way, where
mhm,
they can actually over time become physical, like they become more and more
mhm,
dense. Where these certain ways of how I live in the world actually starts getting embodied in my body, like that knot in my shoulder or the way I'm hunched over or like holding my tongue tied. It actually starts
mhm,
getting more and more dense, and actually those swirls start turning into physicality. Um,
mhm,
and maybe chemicals as well or whatever in our
mhm,
brains. I think there's some of these ways that the way our lives start shaping, and then our circumstances and our communities. It's like the
mhm,
hurricane gets bigger and bigger, and the counterintuitive move of rather than moving away from what feels like the storm is to
mhm,
move deeper into it. So like, oh, I'm feeling sadness, I'm feeling grief. Let me feel that as big as it wants to be felt. Finding space to like, ooh, I'm not going to repress that. I'm not going to ignore that. I'm actually going to make space where that can come through completely. And so something like dance or intuitive movement
mhm,
can be such a powerful thing because you can let those big things be felt. The amount of like
mhm,
grief and rage and stuff that I've moved through that have moved
mhm.
through me in dance,
Yeah.
I'm sure have made a lot of eyebrows raised watching me on the dance floor.
Yeah.
Like I'm just over there like just writhing, but like it came it needed to move. Where else is it going to move? So I
Uh,
think anything that allows us to actually move deeper into our experience of life, not push it to the side, but actually like allow the things that we feel scary, uncomfortable, painful to be fully felt. We're actually moving deeper into where the eye of the storm is, into that silence,
mm.
even though it doesn't seem like it's like that.
Yeah, it's those emotions, like it's like a torrent of emotions. Even torrent to me
Yeah.
feels like at least a current. But it's like those torrent of emotions. I can think of so many times in life where, well, sound emitted on a song that I sang because it was meaningful to my heart, or just true words that came out that were spontaneous. Those broke off glass shackles from different parts of my
Mm,
being that were restricting me. I could think of like several times in life when it was so pivotal that I could say like, oh, who I was the moment before that was so different. But then I also think movement. I mean, you're releasing keys for so many people here. Like for me as a 5'4" or lives in my head, or like even if I didn't have those descriptions that I used in the past to describe myself. I grew up disintegrated. I
mm,
was somebody who grew up barely making sound. People didn't hear me much. I was called Numb Neil. Just like people would call me these names. So, I took that on. But it was my inner emptiness and my what I grew up. I grew up in a swirl that was
mm,
a storm. And I came from a lineage where there was a lot of swirl, and so
mm,
I grew up in a swirl that was less than what my parents grew up in. Thank God, I love them. They've done really well considering what turbulence they grew up in and what chaos they grew up in India, but more specifically with their families. So with me, I think movement was a huge key that helped me as well. That like when I moved, I emulated Michael Jackson growing up. I was a liquid dancer. Then I got into the rave scene and I totally lost myself. But I found my ability to tune into sound and to move like this. Like people would say, you move like the music. And for me, I wasn't moving to do anything. I was moving to be myself. So I often had like expression, interpretive movement. And so I really felt like from an early age, I really loved interpretive dance. And then,
mhm,
um, but I can think of certain times when I would feel the rising of emotions. And if
mm.
I let that become movement, then I saw myself let go of things and
Yeah.
express myself in a way that words and sound didn't do, or writing and mapping and journaling didn't do, or, as it is. Like, I just feel like we are instruments that need to know, or we're multiple instruments all at once. So, um, I've been undone and done by, creative expression. Oh, yeah, I was gonna say Vortex also makes me think of your first song in the Magnificat, as, the lovingness in your podcast and Magnificat, 'cause I remember some of those moments where you shared, um, just, I'm not gonna get too specific here, but there was just a moment on that episode where I remember this woman saying she knew she needed to go to a certain place and say a certain thing. I don't know. All I want to say from that is, because you can go into that more or less if you like, but the listening to what you're hearing and feeling and doing that
Hmm.
is a sacred continuum that for me has been a lifeline. I grew up negating my own voice, doubting myself so much that I didn't trust that if I was hearing "go over there," that it was meaningful.
Hmm.
Whereas now, if I hear "move my arm up here," I do it, and then I hear "move my left leg that way," I do it, and then think
Yeah.
this thought, I do it, because all of a sudden I might be in a moment that breaks down so much negativity in my life because I don't wanna say obey, but because I was integrous with what I was feeling.
Yes.
So, yeah, I feel like there's something
Totally.
in what you're saying there that makes me think of that.
Absolutely. We have these amazing imaginations that are powerful, powerful tools. And so we can imagine, a future where the thing that we're wanting now is finished. And it's a powerful thing that we can do. But sometimes what happens with this powerful tools, we get lost in it, where
Mhm,
we think that future idea of what we want to be healed, to be whole, to be back in our bodies. We think that we can achieve that out there in the imaginary realm by
mhm,
um whatever strategies we have, but whatever those strategies are always from a place of lack because we're living then in a place where we don't yet have what we're wanting. And that's but when we live there, we're always in lack. We're always never quite what we have. It on some level makes sense to our egos, to our thinking minds that that's how we're going to accomplish what we're going to accomplish by living out there. But the counterintuitive thing is it's the source of the aliveness that's going to get us there is always right here. We'll never move towards that place that we want to go except anywhere but right here and right now. So, and that's always only going to come one movement at a time, one emotion at a time, one like one brushstroke at a time.
mhm, mhm,
And so staying present to literally right now to the ego feels terrifying because it's like, but then how am I going to accomplish what I need to accomplish? Because
mhm,
I want to go here. I want to get that done. But it's like it's upside down again. It's like
mhm,
you're not going to accomplish anything actually out there because that doesn't exist. Like the only thing you'll ever accomplish is right here and right now. It's always just going to be this breath, this emotion, this word that I'm saying right now. A book is only written one keystone at a time. He's written one note at a time, and it's always going to
mhm,
be this one. And so if you stay alive to this one, it it's a funny thing because I love hearing artists sometimes talk about how they've done things, and maybe this is part of what you've liked about my podcast too, because it doesn't feel like I made that record.
mhm, mhm,
Like because it was just one thing at a time that was alive, that was more like it when you're actually that present to it, it doesn't feel like you're doing it because in a way you're not. What you feel
mhm,
like is you. The eddy's not doing it.
mhm,
The little swirl, like life is doing it. And so to the artist, it feels like it's coming through me. That's actually kind of
mhm,
more true.
mhm,
Life is making this, or spirit, or whatever metaphors you like for the river. Um, it's coming through you, and so its aliveness is always just going to be right here and right now. So the funny thing is, like that is what ends up creating the most beautiful stuff. Like any artist that's made something beautiful, if you talk to them, you tend to hear, I don't know, it just kind of happened through me. It came through me. It's not like I
Mhm.
forced it with my ego. That's not how beautiful stuff gets made.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's totally feel that. It's yeah, I remember when I wrote this song back in like 2008 out of a profound experience, and I was up playing the ukulele like every night, just like strumming away, singing spontaneous songs. But then one day, off the pages of this book that I was reading, flew these highlighted letters that
Mhm.
landed into another page that was stanza by stanza, and I'm like, I didn't make that,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna sing it. And all of a sudden, as I sang it, I'm like, this is from the fabric of my soul, and somehow this inner creation came out and found its resonance from words that were on another page on a book, and somehow they collected to become something that had melodic interpretation. And when I sang it, it's like I could never imagine singing that another way. And it
Mhm.
was I haven't um I've written songs and sang them for little audiences of, like me, my kids, or hundreds of people at times. But so anyways, I just think that in that moment, I'm like, I've tapped into what you're saying. Now you, on the other hand, you've done this to not a scale, but a longevity. I mean, yeah, like I heard you when you sang, you know, you make beautiful things, right? This
Mhm.
like the song that so many people heard. And then I've listened to your most recent, well, some of your most recent music. Um, and it's amazing to hear you come through every single one of those words, like
Mm.
because you're so multifaceted, but you're also you. So I feel like the you behind you, the you who you were, is the same you who you are. So I feel that continuity throughout time,
Mm.
and um, and I feel like you know. Well, anyways, we can talk a lot about, about your journey and what you've encountered, and the territories you've gone through in life and the stages. But I as a as like me looking at you as a songwriter, philosopher, healer, all these things, it's kind of like I'm just using words, and I know that they describe you in part, but I feel like, yeah, you. It was funny. Now I'll say something, and then I'm gonna have you say much cooler things, I think. But I was thinking of this, like when we were talking about the eddy and then the swirl, the vortex, or the hurricane. Then all of a sudden, I couldn't help but hear the song, like, "Here I am, rock you like a hurricane," right? And it's like, "Here I am, rock it," and then I'm like, "Oh, what if we switch the words and we say, hurricane, and then somebody in the middle of it saying, 'Here I am,'"
Mm.
and that phrase, then I pictured something I wouldn't do, which is sending a hurricane to somebody, because that's what that guy's saying, right? Rock you like a hurricane. You don't want to send hurricanes to people, but then again, um, I pictured that image of almost like a cartoon character, or animated figure, a video game, of if you're in the middle of a storm and you are unaffected or have chosen to be unaffected by it, then whatever hurricane was trying to, consume you could very well glance off of you. Um, so, but you know what? That, all of a sudden it segues me to thinking about like people that really go through hurricanes. Like all the people I know who have been through them, I so feel for them. So, but then that led me to something else, which I want to ask you about. Um, and I feel like you have, yeah, I want to ask you a cosmic question that I'm so excited for you to tell me about. When you say here, what do
Mm.
you mean?
Mm. So to use the hurricane analogy again, it's not, if we insert a person into the middle of the hurricane, moving into the center or moving out, there's something that's kind of lost about the beauty of that metaphor to me. It's actually just the hurricane. So
Mhm, mhm,
life is the hurricane, if you will, or the river. And what tends to happen is the movement gets identified with. So you might have this piece of bark flying around in the hurricane, and somehow there's this mechanism that we have as human beings, again, using the imagination, to identify as something, to go like, this part of what I'm noticing. So in this very moment, what am I noticing? I'm noticing there's a screen. I'm noticing there's a hand, and there's the image of the hand on the screen, and there's the image of the hand not on the screen, and there's sensation about the hand, and there's thoughts about being on a screen. There's thoughts. I can notice some emotion of like enjoying myself having this conversation with you. There's some like joy. There's some I can notice sensation. I feel like a little buzziness in my chest right now. There's all this stuff happening, all this hurricane life going. Where am I in this? Am I the hand? Am I the thought of a guy that has a hand? What is the guy? Where is the I in this? Because there's also the stillness that's not changing, that's beneath all of this, and awareness. And I notice awareness is not another thing that's moving and shifting. It's just kind of like the sky that's holding the hurricane. So here, when we talk about here, it's here in a way is talking more about the sky of the hurricane, that all of this movement is happening through. Because any one thing that I go, this is here, this specific, the hand on the screen is here. Well, now it's gone. What's not gone? Here is always here. It's infinite. Here is the infinite. Here is what doesn't change. Here is the spaciousness in which all the hurricanes keep moving through, all the debris keeps flying through. This feeling, this sensation, this emotion, this thought, this body, this mind are flying through space-time. They're a blink of an eye. It's vapor. Any of the individual detritus in the hurricane is completely meaningless on its own. But when it's seen from here, which it's not, by here, it's not another piece of detritus. It's the totality.
Hmm.
Then every little speck actually starts to be beautiful. When it's seen from the sky, if you will, every little emotion, every little thought, this body, this mind, that mind is all absolutely sacred and gorgeous and temporary, but it doesn't, when it's not attached to as me, it gets to be loved, seen and loved as like, wow, just this, we have this brief moment to have this phone call together. This is the only time this call is ever going to happen. It's this little piece of debris flying by. It's like, wow, this has never happened. It'll never happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. That's from here. If I'm from some other place, if I identify as this imaginary Michael that's out in the future, like, what is this podcast going to do? Am I going to get some more followers on my social media or more listeners to my music? And now I'm not here, meaning that I've identified as this imaginary guy in the future who needs followers, who needs money, and who needs attention and love. The less I'm going to start enjoying this very moment, because I'm not here anymore. I'm off in this I've identified as, if I see that imaginary thing is just one of the pieces of detritus moving through the hurricane, that's a thought, the future of what happens with this podcast, that's a thought. Okay. Yeah. I might have a desire about that thought that goes along with that thought. Like, oh, I hope people like this. That's also just another piece of detritus. That's just another thing moving through space. So the more that I remain in space, the more that I don't get caught up with any of those flying pieces. I don't have to get caught up into that thought of like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh no, am I doing good? Am I saying the right things right now? That's Detroit. Okay, cool. There's a thought. That was a thought. It went by. Oh, here's this one. That's what being here is. It's just it's being the sky that is not moved by what's flying through it. It's not threatened by any cloud. It's not threatened by any hurricane. It just exists as this right now.
Oh, yeah. I was listening to you, and then all of a sudden, at some point, it felt like my eyes went somewhere. The weird sensation was, it was like all of a sudden my view, my lens, my eyes felt like they went from cross to uncross, but they didn't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm like, What just happened?"
Beautiful, beautiful.
It was like a, or it's like some, you go for, I've gone in for optometry appointments, and then my vision, you know, is from an early age has struggled. So when they put the other lens on, they're like, "How's that? Better?" Or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
It's no different. But this lens was different.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh yeah, because I'm thinking about how excited I am to say this other thing to Michael. And then he's talking about being here, and I'm gonna think over there about that other time in the past, and I'm gonna go over there
Yeah,
to think about what I'm gonna say next here. And then you're like, more words. And I'm like, yeah, Neil, keep thinking about that thought over there.
love it.
So then I'm like, whoa, lens shift. And I started looking at you again, but
Mm,
I was looking at you already. My
mhm,
eyes, my visual cortex, optic nerve, my occipital lobe, all the things in my brain were looking at you. But
mm,
then my soul or mind inhabited my apparatus of anatomy. And then uh, some other joyful like feelings that I had came even. And then, when I saw you, it was interesting because all of a sudden I felt like we were in a disco ball and the lights were swirling around us. And I'm like, interesting that I'm seeing an eddy, a vortex, but
yeah,
it was like flashing lights.
yeah.
And I'm like, that I actually feel like I'm seeing more clearly about
Yes,
what this all is. So
yeah,
and this is, I have many, many, many hours of conscious, constant, communion of practice. And how many times do I catch myself, like, I'm like, "Where was I for just, like."
yeah.
But the funny thing is we were talking about here. So it's like, "Oh, man." I'm asking you, and I'm like, "Yeah."
I love it. It's beautiful, but it's another it is just another thing flying through the hurricane. It's just more thoughts, and it's not a problem.
Mhm.
It's just when that thought becomes self-reinforcing, that it's not just a thought, now it's a me thinking this thought, and now there's some shame swirling around it because, "Oh, I should have been more present while we're having this talk about here," and now it's just that swirl has just got a little bigger, but
Mhm.
that to the sky actually doesn't go anywhere. It's always here. It's always now. It doesn't change it. It just the little pieces get their own little mini hurricanes within a hurricane or something. It's like,
Yeah. Right.
or so that's the mini eddies within eddies in the river. It's like, it's fine. It's just notice that that's not all you are.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
distracting thought is thought. Even saying a distracting thought is you're applying a judgment to a thought now.
Was
So it's a
that right?
thought on a thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, so it's so good. I mean, I feel like our conversation is a good exercise of staying present, and some
Mm.
people might be, like, nervously shaking if they're listening still, like, nervously trembling, like, "What are you guys gonna talk about? Are you guys gonna talk about this or that? Or, Neil, why aren't you talking about this? Michael, why aren't you" if anybody knows this, they might be like, "Yeah, when are you guys gonna get to, like, the main thing?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "This is the main thing, just in case
It's
you
the
would
only
leave
thing.
this here."
Yeah.
Just I
The
mean,
only thing.
I all of a sudden, I immediately want, like, I've had, like, this isn't what you're asking for or saying, Michael, I know this, but there's been times where I've known I needed to dedicate time to, to a textbook kind of, it's not even textbook, to meditation, I guess. So I charted out, like, a month of 12 hours a day of sitting in meditation, and I had the luxury of the privilege to do that for
That's
this
wild.
longest time.
That's cool.
But, I didn't sit, I swam the
Mm,
the width and the length of the pool, holding my breath, meditating on phrases in scriptures so that I could inhabit those, so that I could become them, so that I could become myself. Visions and words from the future came, and I saw so much, but that wasn't the goal. I
mm,
just knew I needed to dedicate that
mhm,
chunk of time. Um, but yeah, so because I'm saying here, I just want to say the word here a
mhm.
million times
Yeah,
for days and weeks and just see what
yeah.
happens.
It'd be a cool song. I should record a song that's just here the whole time. That'd be nice, actually.
Well, you know, be here now. I mean, I feel like the Beatles had something going when they said be here now, right? It's like those words are the same. To
Yeah,
here is be,
totally. Yeah.
now is
Mhm.
here.
Yeah, there's so many ways. That's what I mean. Actually, to me, any beautiful poetry
Uh-huh.
that is actually poetry is
Mhm.
that's what it is. It's
Yeah.
the only thing every word is saying. When we
Oh, I love that. The only thing every word is saying.
when it's poetry, when
Yeah.
you can feel poetry.
Yeah.
It's why what makes poetry different than prose? It's like you can. It's not just that there's fewer words in a sentence. It's like
Do
when it.
you
Yeah.
go ahead, sorry, I interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, I think I got the point across. It's just I hope that it just there's a there's a gravity to it
Are
that
you
brings you
in
here.
I started to interrupt you again. Do you engage in, like, spoken word? Do you like that? Is it
I mean, I have. I don't know if I would say I engage in it, but I love anything that some. I tune my ears for poetry. How about that? And I
Mm,
hear it. I hear it sometimes in spoken word. I hear it sometimes in poetry, and sometimes I hear it in people just talking or birds singing or whatever. Um, but when words are spoken from here, a lot of things that are called poetry, I don't get the feeling of what I'm talking about when I'm
yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
say what poetry is. Just because somebody late, you can just say so. The roses move, whatever. Like trying to make it fluffy. That's not what I mean by poetry. When the words become an expression of life in themselves, it's almost like a like a hologram. Um, every pixel has the entire hologram in
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, or it's like every a word that knows in a way. There's something about how the words are used that it's like life itself speaking rather than an ego off in some other place. I don't know how to describe it accurately, but that's the feeling that I get when I hear words that come across like poetry, like they're spoken, they're alive.
Yeah.
Words that are alive. Just because a lot of times we use words as dead tools, but sometimes words are spoken in ways that are living.
Mm. Yeah, as you were talking, I just could feel like the solar plexus,
Mm,
just in my solar plexus, I could feel a fire churning clockwise in motion
mm,
that became red flames. And as you kept talking, I felt those flames like a windmill, but made of fire and flames going
mm,
clockwise. And all of a sudden it went in, it sort of condensed into a smaller version of that wheel and it went up through the center
mm,
channel. We could say esophagus but it kept going all the way up to here. And then I could feel like the air come out hotter. And it was like this
mm,
churning motion that, and I had these words. I'm not, I deleted everything I in my headset after that because I was going to qualify everything that I was about to say, Michael. So just know that I deleted everything I thought after that.
I love, I love, I'm really loving and enjoying your willingness to report the current moment. It's really rare.
Uh,
And it's so I feel like I can see you and know you so much better when you report what's happening in your
mm,
body and what's happening
mhm,
internally than if you gave me a million stories about the past, which is what most of
mhm,
us do. Like we want to be seen and loved. So we're like, here, let me tell you who I used to be and what the things I
mhm.
did before or what I want to do in the future. It's like, but I just want to acknowledge that reporting of your current moment is really, it comes across in that same kind of poetic
Hmm.
way to me, where it's like, oh, there's livingness. These are words being spoken from something true. So
Thank you.
thank you for that.
And I'm gonna live according to your advice here on being here, because I was thinking these words of like what was going on in this channel that was coming up, and I let those words fade. And now I'm gonna let them be gone forever. And I'm not gonna say the words that came. No, it's more like now I see a different word, and it's churning with iambic pentameter.
Mhm.
This funnel channel funnel opens the door and becomes a stationary palm tree that has healing on its leaves. Sometimes we need aspirin, but that's a weeping willow tree. All I know is if I'm not on my knees, I'm not Neil. So-
With a little pun there at the end.
oh, I have to be dad joke cheesy because that I just. Anyways,
Wonderful.
sharing what came in the moment, only for the purpose of living this experiment of here.
For the, yeah, and for the lols,
Uh,
for the laughs.
so there was a moment on a podcast I heard you, and I crack up every time I think of this moment. I can't get away from it because you were in Laguna. You were on a podcast talking about when you were in Laguna at somebody's house, Rob Bell's house, and you were talking with Ryan, sleeping at last, and you were talking about the launch of your podcast. But anyways, it was Pete Holmes that said he was trying to remember it, and you were like, "Yeah, you were over there. You were over there. You were there." And he was like, "I'm the kind of guy who's always over there at that time eating a sandwich." I would just have to say that at least once every week, I think of Pete eating a sandwich in the corner of that room. I just do, because he said it, and he's a poet. I've enjoyed
Yeah.
just like the couple podcasts I've heard you guys do. I'm like, man, he has a lot of wisdom and poetry coming out of his words. So
Mhm.
the other thing I heard him say, which maybe he didn't actually say, but I personified something I thought. I was just thinking of like, you guys are the kinds of people, friends that have Pete tell you, Michael, what does the blade of a grass say about being
Mhm.
here? And then he would say a bunch of other cool, inspiring things. But I don't know. Can you? I mean, maybe this is me asking you through the channel of Pete. Um, what would a blade of grass say about what is here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it always is saying, and that's the interesting, like, it's always speaking,
Mm, mhm.
and it just doesn't it's not human, so it doesn't speak like a human does, but learning to hear everything speaking is part of the magic of being alive and being a human being that can actually, like, listen. We have these senses that allow us to perceive a blade of grass, which is amazing. And so you can sit with a blade of grass, and if you really see it and you really listen to it, and how is it speaking? What is it like to be that blade of grass? It's overwhelming. It's literally every cell in existence is its own symphony, is its own, like, you could spend an eternity with. It's perfect. It's everything is unbelievable. And I mean that literally, because, like, when you believe it, what does that mean? Like, to believe something is to kind of like make it permanent, to like try to put it in a glass container where it's like, I get it. Okay, this is how things are. This is what a blade of grass is. I get it. Now I can move on to something else. But That's not how reality is. Reality is always currently expressing itself. So just because I've listened to a blade of grass in the past doesn't mean I've listened to this one right now. I don't know what is this one saying? And it's if when you start hearing music is a I love music. I've always said like music is my primary spiritual practice
Mhm, mhm,
because this is as someone who creates music, the joy of it is like what haven't I heard as music yet?
mhm, mhm,
Like this new song is a new if I turn it into like a assembly line factory, like, okay, first you do the bass line, then you put the drums, and then you do the lyrics, and then, oh, if it's just like I'm just assembling something that I've done a million times, it's no fun. But if it's like, what could be music now? This word, I've never sung this word or this chord. Wow, even though I've played a D chord a million times, for some reason right now, this chord feels alive. What's
mhm.
this chord is speaking something new in this moment. And approaching life like that. So like music is a great analogy to me. Like the world, like silence can sound like music.
Mhm.
The sound of the breeze can literally sound like music if you hear. If you like n- not trying to force it, but like actually listening to the silence. What's
Mhm.
here? What's alive in this silence? It's not empty. It's like it's rich. It's infinitely rich. The silence is not dead. The silence is alive, which is wild. But that's it's in everything. Like everything is speaking, telling of go to my Christian roots here, the glory of God.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Yeah, well, riffing off of that, silence is praise to God. That was one of the
Mm,
verses in a psalm, and I remember diving deep into that, and there's also some translations that say silence belongs to God. And then,
mm,
uh,
mm.
you know what? Praise belongs to God. But I've used so I totally transposed and
But there's something about like in the whisper that God was in the silence. I remember that story about like there was the storm and the fire, and is that Elijah or something? But it was
yeah,
like God was found in the whisper, basically, like in the
yeah,
silence, which is
yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
There's the be still, there's the silence, there's the praise belongs to, and there's like uh, that, yeah, you probably had these discussions before, but it's like when thought becomes formed into some articulated consciousness, and then you emit that sound and give it shape through, shaping your mouth and the airway structures to cause the vibration of sound to match those thoughts, and then you hear that coming out and you hear it in your ears. 95% of our brain operates by like electrochemical stimulation, so they say, but at least 5% is sound propagation. So I just love how
Mm,
when we make sound, we are really is so much. I mean, it's so multifaceted that I don't like to think about it in simple terms, but when I think about how much sound means to me, or how much your sound is like really, because you put I know from journeying with that podcast, hearing your music, it's like you look like you can feel that you're newly apprehending what comes across your creative, instruments, your voice, your instrument. You can tell it's new to you, and you can tell that you treasure that, and you can like as I loved your podcast, hearing the amount of detail you gave to explain why you chose to
mm,
do your song in certain ways, to choose those words, or to, I mean, down to like a high level of composition, of like composing. So I've been really inspired by that. And so um but silence, uh you know I feel like to some people, they don't know how to go there because of all the reasons of feeling unsafe and feeling
Yeah.
like the chaos of the absence of familiar sounds. It I've kind of brought this up in a couple different instances and platforms, but I feel like I'm asking you a question that's like, it's not about an instructional on how can you help people who might feel scared with silence not feel scared with silence. I feel like that question is automatically what you might share, or like it comes from you. But I want to like say like you're such a guide on a voyage in terms of like uh following the arc of your thoughts in this moment and how you talk. It's the poetry, but it's also the wisdom. So it's kind of like as a skilled voyager who's navigated so many terrains, silence being one of them, and also a lot of pain or working through things. w- what are like constellations or grappling hooks or like footholds, or like
Mm,
what are the ways that you would tell people to travel through on their journey of exploring silence to a
mm,
degree that you're talking about, not just sitting and simply listening, even though that's yeah. So
mm.
I'll be silent now so you can share.
I think, well, actually, the hurricane example comes back again. It's been kind of a theme through this conversation. I like it. Um, but there are parts of us that have developed strategies that are actually threatened by silence. Like some parts of us, as soon as we get silent, all the noise that was going on inside that we have effectively quieted from busyness or from stress or from anxiety, that like those we have these coping mechanisms like, okay, if I stay busy enough with work and I just am always a spare moment, I'm scrolling, that keeps some things at bay. And those things that
Mhm.
are being kept at bay, there are parts of us that feel really threatened by. Because if I let that grief come up or I let that anger come up, it's going to make me not able to function.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to be a parent today. I'm not going to be able to finish my work today. So I don't have the luxury of being quiet to let. So there's parts that have legitimate reasons for hating the silence. So my advice is not to try to like destroy those parts
Mhm.
and just um overrun them. Like, I don't
Yeah.
care what you want, we're going to be silent. But gently finding places that you can carve out in your life that you can actually allow some room to feel that discomfort in a safe way, whether that's through therapy, whether that's through, if you can have time for just turning your phone off for an afternoon and sitting there and feeling uncomfortable. But it's not, the thing is, what we want is to shut it off and go into silence to feel bliss. But that's not how it's going to work unless you've already gone through the hurricane. Like, what you're doing is, the hurricane example is more like you're out in the hurricane. And because you're out in the hurricane, you've developed ways of surviving out in the hurricane. So you've got 9 layers of big coats on, and you've built a metal shed around yourself, and you're out there. And it's like, okay, to go out, to start moving back towards stillness, you're gonna get hit a little bit. There's gonna be some discomfort
Mm.
um, with what's gonna come up. And so being actually providing a way that you're safe, that you're supported in the ways that you need, that like, okay, I don't have to tend to my kids right now. I have an afternoon where I can actually just sit in this and cry and feel terrible. um, that's the first layer of silence, is discomfort, because you got to move through some of those outer layers of the hurricane to get towards the center. And it's actually usually not as far as you think it is. It might feel like you're a million miles from the center, but actually, thankfully, what tends to be is a lot of these emotions are more like a bubble where there's
Mhm.
just a surface that looks like it's this infinitely dense thing, but you just get through the first layer and you're like, oh, I'm already here in the stillness. So some of these emotions, like if you really let yourself feel them, they actually move pretty quickly. If you really if you can be in a space to fully like, um, let it come through, scream into your pillows, yell into the ocean, whatever you need to do. Um, so I think sometimes we assume that meditation equals you sit there quietly and watch your breath and just be quiet. But sometimes the first step of meditation that you need is to shake. Like I think
Mhm.
my dog Lola, who at the first sign of any emotional distress, she sees a squirrel, she barks, and then she shakes. He's like, like, oh, get that, keep that moving through. That is closer to meditation, I think, for where most of us are than just like forcing yourself to be quiet and try to not think of anything. That's just that might be a step, but I just want to acknowledge that like there's a discomfort and there's an initial layer of discomfort usually when you start approaching the silence, but that is temporary. And when you can find enough space to allow that stuff to move, the silence you'll find eventually was always present. It is here. It's the sky. It's always present in the storm. Um, but the shift of perspective to the it feels scary because, and for good reasons. Um, and so doing it gently, finding space where you can do it a step at a time, a moment at a time, and you start developing a relationship with the silence that you can actually start trusting it. And you're like, oh, okay, I know it feels a little awkward or scary or uncomfortable for a minute, but when you see the nature of it is love and that it is actually like helping you and resourcing you and healing you, um, the less threatening the silence will get over time, and
Mhm.
eventually you
Mhm.
just stay there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. I am I think right there as you were trailing off, I was brought back to, you know, I growing up, I just, you know, was really insecure a lot of the times in fear. I've kind of talked about that. Um, I would stay up reading
Mm,
because if I stopped reading, I would be left alone with my thoughts. So I'd
mhm.
stay up till 2 in the morning, reading, 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 conked
Yeah.
out. Woke up. There was other things like I remember I had growing pains, so I didn't want to feel the pain, so I would read.
Mhm,
Later it became music, and I just listened, and I just,
mhm,
headphones on, WBUS 99.9. Anybody from Bourbonnais, Illinois, you know what I'm talking about. So you just hear music, and I was like, wow. I became enamored with sound
mm,
when I was in the eighth
mhm,
grade, and I would just listen. But for me, those were sanctuaries. Words and songs were sanctuaries, and the then I later got into, you know, ecstasy and mushrooms and all the things in that rave lifestyle that would take me away from, like,
mm,
the pure consciousness. I think there can be a beauty in some of that stuff when, somebody's talking about whatever their experiences are, with the psychedelics and microdosing or whatever it is. I'm not gonna qualify any of that. I'll just say I'm not speaking against those things. I'm speaking that those for me were a coping mechanism to take me away from a pain. But
mhm,
in that time, I learned how to be so consciously present with the music and with who I was with that I would get lost in those moments. But I had to kind of go through a lot of healing after that because, you know, once I came back to an awareness of who I was, I realized, oh, I don't know how to get there on my own.
mhm.
So those were the times when silence was a scary thing.
Yeah.
But as it is, I began to. find that I could embrace silence, and it became a friend, so much so that I couldn't wait to delve deep into closed eyes, diving
Yeah.
in to that, place. And so
Right.
I think some people also can say that those things that were our friends can still be our friends. Sound, words, and
Yeah.
music, they could be gateways too. Like, I find that, I've instructed a lot of people in this in my somatic practice, but I was like, I just one guy was struggling um, with, and we can say one guy means me because I've done this many times too. Like, but in this case, I could tell that like his words were so measured, and he was holding back so much from telling me about the
Mm.
pain he was in, even though that's why he's there, right? He's there to experience
Mhm.
more than manual therapy, the somatic work. So I just said, it became very clear to me that I thought he needed to go out to a forest and
Mhm.
shout until he heard himself actually express how he felt,
Yeah.
because he was so captured by the fear of what he might say and feel if he really shared how he was feeling.
Yeah.
And I've had that many times where once I really let it out and share how I was feeling emotionally, but also, volume wise, I feel the emanation of that. I feel who I am, and I feel so much in myself that then I can just waft in those vibrations that it feels like I'm still with all those resonances and the vibrations and the frequencies, and I don't feel alone. I feel like I'm riding a wave that actually feels really safe and secure. So, as somebody who I've journeyed with a lot of darkness and like all of melancholy, I had to I think that those things can be really helpful. That it felt like some of that was what I was hearing from you, and then I also wanted to share some personal scaffoldings that have helped me too.
Yeah. I kind of I think coping mechanisms sometimes they have such a negative connotation for a lot of us that we're like, "Oh no, I shouldn't be using any coping mechanisms." But they're there for a reason. Like they do help us. They're like if you're out in the middle of the hurricane, sorry, I keep using the hurricane. Um, the shield that you're holding up to keep you from getting killed by all the flying things it is giving you a little silence, right? It's like more silence than if you just let it down and just getting struck by all the things. Um, they're like helpful, and so to just think that you can just throw away all of your ways of coping with life and just you know go right to the center might be a little bit uh, naive in
Yeah,
what we're in how our systems work because
yeah,
they're more sophisticated than just like a single me in here who's like, well, do it right. Don't use any coping mechanisms. Like there's a whole ecosystem in this system that is like, this is why we shut down emotionally when we're at my parents' house. This is why, there are reasons and um, it's the more time though that you spend, the little moves that you can make towards the center, towards the eye of the hurricane, towards the actual full stillness, the less need you'll have over time to rely on those coping mechanisms. But it's also there are some parts of us that like to bypass those things and try to but it's just another coping mechanism. It's like
mhm, mhm,
not gonna do that anymore. I'm just gonna and whatever the new coping mechanism, I'm just not gonna feel or whatever. It's just another coping mechanism. It's another way of bypassing something. Um, so learning to love these parts of us that cope in certain ways and understand why is a big part of what will allow them safety to move more and more towards silence as a whole system. It's like when um a group of people move slower together. You can't just in a plane. You'd think if it was just you on a plane, you could deboard in 15 seconds. Just get up and walk out. But it's like all of us together, it takes a long time because I got to get my bag and I got to wait for them and I got to let them pass. And it's more complicated. And that's a little bit more how it is in our systems. I think it's like to actually reintegrate our whole systems towards silence in a more holistic way. It's little moves, this moment at a time, this moment at a time. And when we have more patience with, like, I get why when it's okay when I go to sit in meditation and my mind is busy, got that monkey mind, like you said. That's okay. That's a part of me that's coping. That's a part of me that's a little threatened by the silence. And that's okay. But can I notice it and love it and take care of it however I can right now? And it's little moves, like, oh, just a little attention, a little love, a little care, and trusting the river to move us eventually to wherever it wants us to be, and trusting that
Mhm.
that's a place of wholeness and love eventually. But that's it's I'm just trying to give a little, like, grace, because I think sometimes in spiritual circles and places where we value healing and integration, we can really try to, like, bulldoze over some of the things that are useful strategies in our bodies, and we just end up bypassing with unconscious strategies.
Yeah, so good. And I know you said some good words in there that I'm just gonna gloss over, and then meaning like um I'm gonna say some of them, and then I want to say something else that
Mm,
I think I'll remember. But oh man, you said yeah. I just kept hearing like right when we bypass, gaslight, invalidate, like
mm,
how much of that doesn't help
mhm,
anybody, and how
yeah,
much of that is so ubiquitous and so
mhm,
present. And I could say in places and societies and buildings and gatherings and all kinds of spiritual circles, every single, it exists in every single one. But yeah, talking about the whirlpool within us, it's like how many times do we gaslight ourselves? And it might be because of programming and negative environments and external circumstances, but interestingly, no, I wonder now, Michael, if we could if we go back in time. No, I'm intentionally talking about the past, so I'm still here. But I'm still talking about the past as in
yeah, yeah.
if we go back and I didn't say hurricane and I just said Eddie, I love it. And we didn't say any of the synonyms, would our imagery for this whole talk have been the eddy in the water? 'Cause then I'm like, Eddie. And here's what that makes me think of. Because we could have said whirlpool, right? And we could have,
Yeah.
and if we were sponsored by Whirlpool, we would have made some money, right? That would be cool. But Eddie, Eddie's a friend I've had since I was in 6 years old, and I'm friends with him now. So I'm 45 years old. So we've known each other for nearly 40 years. I remember I was at his house in the second grade in Mantino, the cornfields. We were roaming around, anyways. So we're walking around, but his mom was Guatemalan, and she'd say, Eddie, every time she would call him, and she's like the Guatemalan version of Lucy from I Love Lucy, if you could picture that. She was always making tripe and beef tongue, and like we had the best food that I
Mhm.
don't eat anymore, but I would eat that then. And then um, it's just for me, this reminds me of the blade of grass that Pete would talk with you about, that I asked you about. But it reminds me of swaying, like all of a sudden that imagery is here now. Like those cornfields were swaying in the wind. And I love to embody whatever I see. So my one of my best movement practices or favorite ones is to become to become that what I see. You know, to
Mhm.
to see, like a cornfield and just sway like that corn
Mhm.
in the wind. Um but going back to that time, we would spend a lot of time just and then later in life, we would sing together, and we've sent each other like Marco Polos where we've harmonized, and, some of the greatest moments where we're singing together even when we were not together, and, um, so I think for some people like me, singing has been a friend, or if I'm not emitting sound in some way that captures poetry, like I don't feel alive. And
Mhm.
it just might be the way I'm speaking someday, or it might be a song I'm singing to one of my kids, or it might be beatboxing, or I know, like, I love how you think with consciousness, like, song singing could be the way that you kick your shoe off, or singing could be the way that
Yeah.
skip across the room. And it's so funny because the whole time now I can't get that song of "Here I am, rock you like a hurricane." That's the whole time. So, um, do you have another song that you know of that has the word hurricane in it?
That's- uh, I love the idea if you like if you knew you were gonna ask that question, you're like, I want to ask him if there's another a song that he knows with the word hurricane, and that's the route that you took to ask that question. It's very good.
I had no idea I was going to ask you that question,
I
by the
know
way.
that's what I'm saying. I love the like. So what I mean in all this,
Right. I've
ah,
taken you on a journey, Michael. I've
I,
cultivated the conversation.
I
I've
love it.
seamlessly put together thoughts very carefully. So anybody listening will know that I've crafted this really well.
Yeah,
And
uh-huh.
because
That
of
was your
your
next question,
answer,
and you found a way to really get
well,
there.
don't worry, Mike. You're gonna make this beautiful.
I well, Gungor has a song called Hurricane, so it's
No
not a
way. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. I didn't know that. I should know that. Okay.
No, I don't know why we've released a lot of songs, so no need to know that, but
Okay.
it's a song
What so
called
tell me,
Hurricane.
what is it about?
I think I don't remember. I think Lisa wrote that one maybe.
Mm, mhm.
Um, I may have been involved. I don't remember. I mean, I was involved in recording it and producing it, but I don't remember if I wrote it or not. So I'm sorry. I can pull up the lyrics, but it was from a while ago too. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna look into that, but is there any other that or any other song that you know of that comes to mind? Eddy, Swirl, Whirlpool, Vortex, Fibonacci Spiral.
You know that top 40 Fibonacci spiral song?
It sounds like it'd be an opera song.
That's yeah. Oh,
What
That Taylor Swift song, Fibonacci Spiral.
you can see a whole, like, stadium of 40,000 people saying,
Yeah.
"Fibonacci Spiral."
Yeah. I don't know.
No,
If
but
there's
tell me, speaking of music, I wanna hear more about, like, you're about to you're going on tour, right? Is that coming up really soon?
yeah. Yep.
I
We're
wanna
about to
hear
head
about
out
that
on
because I
tour.
know I looked at that and I'm like, "Oh, man, those dates that you're gonna be up in the Walnut Creek." I'm like, I go up to Walnut Creek once a month to see people do
Oh,
sessions,
cool.
and I'm not gonna be there, the whatever it is, I'm gonna be wherever else you are. I'm not gonna be where you are on those times, but I'm like, "Man, I could have been down in SoCal or I could have been up there," but it just doesn't work, so I'm sad that I'm gonna miss those dates, but I wanna hear,
Yeah.
like, tell me, like, I've been tracking some of your, posts, but, like, I do like, what's this tour about?
Yeah. It's called Mystic Hymnal, and it's group singing focus. So I grew up, like I said before, music has been my primary spiritual practice through
Yeah.
my life. Like my earliest experiences of here, I'd
Mhm.
say, were with in musical settings a lot of times. Um, and so this is that's Marcy back there on the couch. She's actually posting about the tour. I think she's gonna be on the tour with me. Um, we're gonna be yeah, several cities. We're going down California, down through Texas and Arizona, and some different places. But it's gonna be great. It's like we've done a handful of these events, and they're beautiful. It's kind of like
Mhm.
what I loved most about church, growing up in church and worship,
Mhm.
but without like dogma or so no beliefs required, no specific singing required, but just like presence. And it'll be celebrative of our bodies and our current experience. There's no shame in it. It's just like be as you are, feel what you need to feel, let it come through singing. If you don't want to sing, you can not sing too, but it's just very non-judgmental, open space to be together, not
Mhm.
through a screen, which I think is important these days.
Oh, it's good. Uh, well, I'm sure I'll need to be there in well, you know what? I will be there in person at some point, but, that reminded me of, like, when it was, like, a little bit before we moved to Santa Barbara a year ago, and you came up to Reading and we're at a house party or a house
Yeah,
gathering, and Dawn, she found you. She was following somebody's Instagram, and she said this and this. She's like, "Michael," she mentioned you and that you were gonna be there, and I was like she's like, "I wanna go," and I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds really interesting, like, I'd love to go." So, we went, um, and I met you there, and I was talking to you, but, you know, it was really intimate, a really small I mean, it was not
yeah,
that small, it wasn't just 3 of us, but it was intentionally an intimate gathering,
yeah.
and it was beautiful.
That's so interesting. Like that, I remember that house show. I have like 3 or 4 or 5 people that I met at that house show that are like pretty close in my life
Yeah,
now, which is really
wow,
interesting. Like,
that's
yeah,
so
it
interesting.
was really beautiful. I love the intimate thing about that.
Yeah, so interesting. And what I really like took from that time, other than learning about your journey, like hearing you talk, hearing you share some, um, and then, well, let's just say it's in like hearing you share about the divine feminine, and
Mm,
for me, that's a significantly pivotal thing in my life,
mm,
is because I grew up in a lot of
mhm,
patriarchy and misogyny. And from an early age, I said, "No, I don't want any of that. I wanna live a life where I combat that in a very
mhm.
loving way." And so, Dawn similarly resonates with that. And so,
Yeah.
interestingly, like, I feel like I've been really tuned in to the feminine polarity,
Mhm,
but I had gone so deep into that I wasn't really tuning into, like, my masculine energy. So
mhm,
there was a couple other men there too that were saying something similar, and then there was one who had said that I think maybe he knew you or not, but he said like he has been way more in touch with his masculine energy, and so that
mm,
polarity discussion, I felt like I gleaned from that more about delving deeper into my masculine energy,
mm,
so that I could be more complete in within myself. Um, so I'm bringing that up to say like I felt so nourished and
mm,
encouraged in that like time. It was your music was like so compelling, and that was legitimately like on its own would have been like so amazing to be there. But I remember those times, and would say like so I really to me it's really struck with such I've been so grateful for how much you've championed the divine feminine, or you've
mm,
talked about it, or you've said how important that is, because that's not well accepted in a lot of
mm,
places in the world, including
mhm,
a lot of churches. So um, that's really valuable, and I feel like I'm I'm that yeah. So this is very interesting because meeting you, finding out more about you, I'm like, wow, I resonate so much with
mm,
some of like the things that you hold as really important ways to live. And so I don't know how many years ago that was. So then it's pretty fun and wild to be talking with you today on that arc, and have had some really amazing times where you've journeyed with, you know, I don't know if you want to talk about like your just like the way you navigate internal family systems, the way that you carry those things. I've really been benefiting from that, and so
mm,
I appreciate you in that because again, I feel like you're just coming through those things, as who you are, not changing anything, and the authenticity just really speaks to me. So
mm,
I appreciate that. I think a lot of people maybe who have known you longer might say the same, but I think there's like a poignance to crossing paths at this time, um, and yeah, I would just look forward to following your journey more, and I think making it to one of your actual in-person gatherings, because I don't, like we've had, thank God for screens that are
Mhm.
portals of connection,
Yeah,
'cause I've
totally.
been able to benefit from that, as you know, and as you've
Mhm.
said. But nothing does replace the in-person um,
Totally.
connection. So I look forward to that.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I don't know if I should say this, but I will. Like, to me, everything that I'm doing, all the music, the Mystic Hymnal stuff, the sessions that I do with people online, the words that it's all kind of an excuse for presence.
Mm,
That's it. It's like, and there's something about shared presence.
mhm,
I think of the parable, the Jesus parable about yeast moving through the dough,
mm,
and how love, how awareness, life, it there is some aspect of it. Light, even think about how light is always like moving towards it. It's not. I can shut the blinds and shut the light out if I want, but it doesn't relent. It
mhm,
doesn't burst through the consent of the blinds, but it's always there at the door knocking. It's always like,
mhm,
"Hi, I'm here if you want." And that to me, so when multiple bodies together open the door to presence, there's nothing like it. It's
mhm,
absolutely, um, it's my favorite thing in the world. So sharing presence with, we are all connected. Like, we are
mhm,
one body. And so when we remember that, and you can do that to a degree over screens, you can do that to a degree, listen, but there's nothing quite like being in a room, breathing together, allowing our bodies to actually acclimate to shared presence
mhm.
is beautiful. So that to me is actually my primary goal of the all the songs, everything we're doing, working on this stuff. It's all an excuse. It's a Trojan horse.
I love it. Well, I would love to delve into that a little further. Well, as like a couple moments earlier where you shared about music being your primary, like
Mhm,
spiritual practice, and um, well, have you read The Alchemist before?
mhm,
That book? Okay,
mhm,
so yeah, there's like interestingly, some of my most profound moments of remembering that story of the alchemist and Santiago journeying through. Um, I've listened to an album while I was reading it, and so many times I hear like the instrumental album and these like voices of like just belting out sound for no reason. That to me make it feel like I'm there in the desert with Santiago as he's like
mhm,
being informally mentored by the alchemist, meeting his person Fatima, and um, but yeah, interestingly, right, there's that guy, the historian, theologian, whatever his name is, the scholar, who is like striving to learn from the alchemist, that he was just like, efforting so much. And then there was Santiago, a boy who grew up a shepherd who just had a dream and he wanted to
mhm,
literally find that dream, which was his
mhm,
treasure. And there he goes, mystically engaging with this profound magic that helped him uncover not only his deepest love but his deepest treasure. Um, yeah, interesting. That reminds me of myself and who I'm excited to even delve more into, which is letting go of the knowledge and the scholarly. I, you know, am writing research articles and I'm publishing things that are going in textbooks, so I'm not talking about that, right? You know what I'm talking about. It is this incessant need to know,
mhm,
um, to provide safety to, who
mhm.
we are. But
Yeah.
man, I wasn't going to go there. Where I wanted to go is if that moment where Santiago is apprehended by Melchizedek, and Melchizedek says that phrase to him. He says, the universe conspires in your favor when you are in pursuit of your personal end,
Yeah.
right? It's like all of eternity and reality converges.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, that's the yeast moving through the dough. To me, there's like
mm,
it's a a directionality to like wanting to remember itself or something. Yeah.
Oh, remembering. Yeah, yeah. You have a big theme of like the remembering and how like a lot of reality is remembering. I resonate with that. Tell me more about that or
Yeah, I
extrapolate.
like, and I usually like to put a hyphen between re and member. Like, I actually think of it more not such a like a past thing. I think that would
Yes.
be the not like think again about the past, but more
It's a
like
verb, not a noun.
yes,
Yeah. Yes.
remember, put together,
Yeah.
put together that which in your mind you've separated. So let
Mhm.
it, but it's not even. It's almost like it does it itself. The
Mhm.
remembering happens when you stop trying to force it to not.
Yeah.
um and again, my Christian tradition, I love, I think that's what the Eucharist is when Jesus says like, take
Mhm.
this, eat, this is my body, this is my blood, remember me. I don't think that's think about me in the past tense. I think
Yeah.
it's like actually allow the aliveness that is everything and everywhere and everyone already, the divine life, the spirit ruach, let it come together here in this
Mhm.
meal with this bite, with this sip. You're actually drinking, we share our, but you are my body,
Mhm.
this is my body, you are my blood, this is my blood, I'm not separate from you. um that's what I hear more than like, take this and drink this juice and remember, think about this guy who lived 2000 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, um, yeah, interestingly, um, oh yeah, it brings back a lot of memories of growing up, I went to a Catholic school, so spent a lot of days in mass, um, and but going back to that idea of personal legend, well, I want to ask you what yours is, but some people have an idea that legend means like what is the amazing popular cool thing that we inflate about ourselves, and I actually don't mean that because
Mm,
Paulo wrote the book, right? So when Paulo's been on a podcast and somebody said all these great things and he says dream, what's
mm,
your dream? So I like that because I'm like, wow, so simple, right? Somebody can break it down to like, what's your dream? I also love to think about it as your purpose,
mhm.
what is it that you're here for?
Yeah.
Here. I mean, man, now I'm gonna think about that word even differently in the middle of asking you this,
Mm,
um, but I guess I'm tempted to go to. We all know here means not yesterday or tomorrow, so we could just sit with that. But I want to ask you, anyways, that
mhm.
yeah, what are you put on this planet to do? What is that?
Kiss the babies. Those are the that's my life mission. It's my, uh and if you put that in the IFS language, like you said, the internal family systems, it's anything, any of the swirls that I encounter, whether that's in my own psyche, in my own body, or in yours, or whoever I encounter, whatever swirls, they're like, I like IFS personalizes them. Um, internal family systems looks at these little coping mechanisms or perspectives or beliefs, false, call them false selves, whatever, but actually treats them like people, like personifies,
Mhm.
like, hi, oh, is this part of me that I'm going to talk to it like I talk to my child, gently with love. Seeing the world like that, where everybody is my baby, everything, not my Michael. Michael is my baby too. Anything, any swirl, any pattern, the way the ego wants to dominate it. The ego wants to stand above it. Love wants to just see it and kiss it and love it and be with it.
Mm.
So that's my mission. Wherever it's encountered, whatever feels lost, whatever feels exiled, whatever feels like a distortion or a dream or a no, it just gets a kiss. It just gets a hi. I love you. That's it. And whether I
Mm.
can do that through strumming my guitar or breathing with people or listening to a blade of grass, whatever it is, that's to me like the through line.
Mm. There needs to be silence right after that, so I'm gonna give it 5 seconds to take it in. Yeah, so it needed that, because I want to ask my part 2 of the question, but I didn't wanna rush into it to give that proper sharing, like the potence that it had, but, well, this is meant to be like some kind of aspirational instructional on, I took Paulo's words and went into a like a way that it showed me what helped me, which is a legend. Like I look at I'm in my practice, my work, and all the forms of it. I like to make maps for helping other people like navigate. So a cartographer is kind of something I resonate with at times. Um, but if your legend is like a key on a map where you see, like, on the bottom right corner where it is, you see, like, oh yeah, from here to here is like, an inch, but that's like 10 miles.
Yeah.
That kind of symbolism. What are, if you have practices or modes of being or anything like that, what are the things in your life that serve as your legend in terms of navigating your purpose or like how
Mm.
you stay tuned in?
Um, so I'm writing a book right now about a framework that I've cut now. It's kind of like in the rearview mirror of like this is kind of how I've um, kept aware of what's going on in my system. I've found these several different layers of places that I can find those swirls, those me's, those little hurricanes. Um, and so I call it the open hand method. And it's essentially just, again, a framework, kind of a map of the layers of our being. So it starts out in the external, what we think of as the external world. And then we move
Mhm,
down into noticing um, that external world is actually being perceived internally, and then noticing what else is being perceived internally, like our emotions and our sensations and our thoughts, and then noticing how those different ingredients of our moment get bundled together. And those are through three different desires primarily, which are approval and control and safety. These
mhm,
desires for these things that end up, what by bundling, what I mean is like you start trying to pay attention to an emotion and all of a sudden your mind is really busy and you're lost in thoughts. That's a bundling. Like now my emotions, I couldn't just get in touch with my emotion. Now I'm thinking about the thing, or and now I've lost contact with what am I tasting in my mouth and what am I smelling in the air. The our experience of reality tends to shrink the more that these things get bundled together. And now I'm not hearing the music of everything. I'm just lost in my own thought about what I want or what I need, or even maybe it's even denser than that. And I'm just looking at you as my problem. You know, f you. You're the one. You're the reason that I'm. The more condensed it gets, the less our experience is even available to our awareness. Um, and so there's this framework of just I'll scan through these layers, and this is what I work with in people in sessions and stuff too. And then one more layer under that, just to mention, is the identity layer itself, which is just this desire to be or not to be. Um, and so when you trace through the layers and you see how, you know, oh, I'm not noticing my sense of taste. I totally forgot that I have a sense of taste at all in my mouth right now. And then you kind of trace that down. You're like, oh, that's because every time I start looking at that, my mind gets busy. Oh, that's because I have a desire for safety that's being supported by this desire for control. And I need to, and then that's related to how I want to be something at all. And you trace all of a sudden something really simple on the surface all the way down to like, this is how I want to feel separate from God. um, when you trace that, it's just you can't keep holding on to the surface stuff as tightly when you see what you're actually doing. You're telling yourself the truth about why the surface is like it is, why the fruit looks like this. Um, and it's not out of judgment. The whole thing is like not judging that, but just seeing it and loving it. And when that happens, harmony starts to naturally emerge between all these different layers. So there's a lot to say about that method. I'm writing a book about it.
Yeah.
But that's, to me, a framework that allows for the coming and going, the ebbs and flows of different practices, actually, because that's what I found for me is there's been times that what was medicine a year ago might be poison now, or vice versa, because it's contextual, like
Mhm.
like any medicine is literally, like, right, like any medicine that you take from a doctor, if you take too much of it or in the wrong circumstances, it's poison. um but even poison in the right dosage in the right circumstances becomes medicine. So it's really kind of, rather than like here's 5 practices that everyone should use, I don't see the world like that. I think like uh there's been times that I needed to eventually like actually fully reverse a practice, like rather than uh if your thing is sitting meditation and sitting and watch your breath, there may be a time that you're called to not do that at all.
Mhm.
Get out and try to like be as busy as you can out in the world, might be your practice. But that has to be what IFS would call self-led, which capital S, spirit-led would be how some people would say it. But not getting attached to any specific practice, but kind of seeing what you're doing with it. Just like I don't want to be a hammerist. I don't want to take one tool and make it my identity. And then anything that I come up in my life, I just use the hammer. It's like, well, I'm a hammerist. I got to use my hammer. You're not going to be good at anything. Like, you're not going to be a very skilled person in life if you just get attached to one tool for everything. So seeing any practice as a tool, and a tool for what? For loving awareness, to become more aware of what's happening, to to see who you are more clearly in this moment.
Mm. Okay, I love that. Even tongue in cheek saying like, "Ooh, that's a good practice." Is
Yeah.
I'm gonna make that my practice. To unpractice, undo. No, I love that. I totally resonate with that. And yeah, so if you could take a minute and tell me like, well, no, I'm just like, what would you say the words to describe? I mean, it's really cool to see all the different kinds of crafts that you. I mean, you're a musician, of course, the songwriter. I've said philosopher many times because you can't not say that. Um, I mean, you can, but I can't. It's unmistakable that I hear that coming from you. But you're a writer. You have all these things. But then I think also like I know you said it's just an excuse for presence,
Mhm.
which is really cool. But gatherings and bringing people together and communing, and
Mhm.
I've really been like inspired by tracking with some of that you've done, and of course I've benefited from some sessions with you and really delving into what can help me.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's so much there. So you know, boy, it's like kinda like, what else are you gonna do? And what else are you gonna encounter?
You're like, so what songs do you know with the word session in them?
Oh, boy. Yeah, the way I think. How many times did I not say, "Oh, that sounds like a really good name for a song," and I didn't say that so many times. 'Cause I literally stopped myself about 5 times I'm like,
Uh,
"Oh, yeah, I gotta let it go," 'cause everything
that's so
doesn't need to
funny.
be labeled. Everything doesn't need to be.
I love the 5'4". I mean, quite fine. I can see you're 5'4" too, and it's very enjoyable. Delights me.
That was beautiful. Thank you for unfolding all of that. Really enjoyed it. If you want to just give a 1 minute how people can find you or engage with you, knowing that we'll put it all in the show notes, but just lead us out with how people can find you and in a farewell word.
Yeah, well, I have too many brands of things, but michaelgungor.com, Gungor, has, I think, all of them. Mystic Hymnal is this project of group singing that we're going to be on tour soon, but you can follow me on all the either Gungor Music or Michael Gungor, pretty much any of the socials or anywhere you like to consume content. But would love to see you on the road. Would be really fun. In person would be my favorite. But any way that you would like to engage, yeah, the michaelgungor.com should have the music, podcasts, sign up for the newsletter or something, and I'll keep you abreast of what's going on.
Thank you. Well, thanks for being on the Compromise to Alchemize podcast and for sharing you. And I hope anybody out there who wants to revel in all the fun that we had, please share. Send us your thoughts. Tell us what you thought. And reach out to me so I can know what you found funny or what you found wise, and whatever you found from it, I want to know. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Neel. It's been fun. What would I like to make? A warble, a god, a cake. A marigold mongoose. A purple plaid sky moose. What would I like to make? How would I like to play? What would you like to say? Hey. Have we had enough war yet? Have we shopped enough stores yet? How would you like to play? Let's make the branches wave and hear all the people pray. Galaxies forming, temperatures warming. We could try being brave. Let the skies fill with rain. Let the light paint the day. Feel the desire, the pure smokeless fire. Let everything have its way. Let everything have its way. Let everything have its way. Let everything, everything have its way. Everything has its I know what I'd like to make. A small fragile heart that breaks. It feels all the suffering, makes it an offering. Burdens becoming praise.
thank you for listening to the Compromise to Alchemize podcast. Really excited to thank Jessica from Lunalux for the music, this track called Major. I want to thank Toshi, who originally did the design work for my cover art. And then I also want to thank Alyssa from my team for podcast publishing, and my whole team, including Kat, for heading up my world. And then also definitely want you all to follow me on YouTube, follow the podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcast, comment, give us a rating, and also follow me on Instagram at Dr. Neel Bulchandani so you can stay tuned to my latest. Thanks so much, and you have an amazing day.
This is major.